Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Is that you hear? Time to head up the hill and check out the future by reaching into the past? Is that confusing to anyone else? Well, it's not to me. So settle in by your monitor screens for a retelling of a little tale that I like to call You Shouldn't Listen to the Future.
I stood stock still as I silently gazed up at the dilapidated structure, reiterating the reasons to myself that I'd come here in the first place. Those reasons being curiosity, rumor, boredom. Even I wasn't entirely sure. I removed the backpack that had been flung over one shoulder from my back to retrieve a bottle of water. It had been a long hike to get here, and I felt the need to cleanse my empirical desire for thirst before continuing and discovering what lay in wait beyond. For years, the township claimed this building to be condemned, an abandoned factory or an office of some sort that at one point, at least according to rumor, had been scheduled for demolition. Supposedly, scheduled destruction of the place was tossed to the wayside, as reports of a rattlesnake den within demanded crews keep their distance for safety. Of course, there was another rumor, that the place would never be demolished, that what lies within is far too valuable to destroy, and the snake den rumor only created to keep miscreant teens from vandalizing the place or throwing the random keg party inside. As ridiculous as that rumor was and why, I prayed for it to be true, for I am definitely terrified of the former snakes. Most of the exterior had been broken by vandals long ago, the front door gone, having either rotted away or served as a trophy for some juvenile delinquents. There's no walkway leading up to the entranceway to go inside. The walk leading up to it had been completely reclaimed by the forest that surrounded the place. What was once nothing more than tiny weeds wiggling through cracks in the cement walkway were now great, large bushes and tall grass that had overtaken it entirely. Trampling through the flora, I approached the door. Although some light from the world outside filtered in, when contrasted against my ill-adjusted eyes, it may as well have been resolute in darkness. The front door not all that dissimilar from a yawning mouth, waiting to swallow me whole. The air inside was so thick with old must and aged mildew that the taste nearly choked me. Looking around at all that was refuse, warped floorboards, leaves that had filtered in through the broken windows from the world outside, I wondered how preposterous it was to think that this place still had working power, let alone abandoned mechanical devices to make use of it. Still, I was relieved to find no snakes, which, considering the township's story, lent credibility to the rumor that I was now chasing. Having invested most of my day and observing no immediate threat, I pressed onwards to the old storage room near the back, my current destination. Pushing on the door, it creaked and groaned in opposition to my desires, and the room beyond was in just as much disarray and neglect. Nearly every visual element was as abandoned-looking and reclaimed by age as the rest of the structure. Something, though, did strike me as odd as I finished surveying the dark room, nearly devoid of windows aside from those that resided high up on the walls. The object that now held my focus so tightly was a large, computer-like machine that looked very similar to Jeff Goldblum's mainframe in the movie The Fly. Honestly, the machine looked as antiquated as it did out of place. However, its presence heavily indicated something else entirely. Substantiation. As I approached the thing, I could not help but marvel at it. Not understanding much of the ways of its gauges and oddly labeled toggle switches, but two of the dials and one switch looked schematically familiar. One dial having numbers and percentages inscribed and on its edges, like that of radio frequencies, only exceeding way beyond the normal range on both ends. The other knob indicated a series of numbers that I did not yet understand, but when combined to those next to it, it revealed their function of date selection. The toggle switch was easy enough to figure out, and actually surprised me that it had even been labeled in such a way. Engravings above it spelled the word on, while the ones below it spelled off in quotation marks. This was the rumor told to be true, unbelieved by most, and up until that point, myself included. Having wasted enough time marveling and staring with anticipation, I reached out and flicked the switch to the on position. Truth be told, I expected nothing to happen. Nothing indicated that this building was even energized, yet despite the impediments of time, neglect, and rational understanding of how the world works, the machine buzzed to life anyway, calculating some parameters within its various clicks, processing sounds, before tapering off into an airy whine that reduced to the sounds of fans whirring. Excited, I remembered thinking that there was no way that this was what everyone said it was, a quantum computer. But this wasn't just any old quantum computer, not like the ones being developed today. Instead, it makes use of newfound quantum entanglement theories and applications. This thing was actually rumored to generate wormholes. Now, I'm no quantum theorist. In fact, I'm studying for a degree in psychology right now, but I'm fascinated with quantum theory and quantum mechanics, the weird physics that occur in the realm of the very small, and the theoretical applications of those newfound findings. Hell, in my spare time, I look up and watch Yale lectures on quantum theory. I admired this thing humming and droning in front of me, still completely taken aback that this thing indeed had power running to it at all, seemingly unexplainable. But I was sure that there was some sort of battery-powered source contained within, or running from somewhere nearby, hidden and unknown to me. I played with the dials some more, and aside from the thing making a few more subsequent beeps and clicks as a result of me playing with things I did not understand, the thing did nothing. In the end, I could no more conclude this thing to be a quantum computer capable of generating wormholes, or really even computing, over it being more than just a glorified noisemaker, since there didn't seem to be a display or any other means of knowing what was being processed. Looking at the sides, I'd seen that something had been removed from its left. Metal stumps sticking from the concrete, from where something should have been, likely another machine that worked alongside this one, maybe even a monitor screen of sorts. Sure, it was seemingly no space-age experimental computer, but it was odd. It made no sense here. A discovery in itself. Satisfied with this, I sat down on an overturned empty bucket that I had found nearby, and took myself a long-needed rest. The trek here had been a long one, and I was in no hurry to turn back. I pulled out a bottle of water and my cell phone. Taking a sip from the bottle, I looked to my phone for a signal, so I could listen to some music off of YouTube while I smoked some, happy stuff. No luck. Next, I pulled a pocket transistor radio from my bag that I keep on me for small side jobs doing maintenance and construction for people, my main source of income currently. At first, the radio speaker whistled and squeaked as I rolled the knob, looking for anything to come in clear enough to listen to. Then, it happened. I heard someone talking, as if it were an intermission of sorts, or a talk radio block. Seeing as it was the only thing that came in clear enough to pass as listenable, I left it on, waiting for what I thought was a commercial to end as I rolled my joint. But as I prepared the pinner, I kept hearing the man on the radio talking about body counts in Michigan, how Detroit was completely lost, and that troops were falling back. Again, just thinking this was some kind of comedy skit, I listened, but things got stranger. He talked about how President Gregor was calling for martial law, how anyone found with Swiss propaganda would be tried for treason, and strangest of all, the skit, or commercial, did not end. This was a program, but none of this made any sense. Then my eyes looked to the mainframe that I'd been fucking with, the one that I was randomly pressing dials and buttons on, and seen its lights flickering, and I could still hear the occasional clicks of the processors. I'd left it on, and now I began to realize what in fact had happened. I knew enough about quantum physics to know that a wormhole big enough to pass a person or a normal object through was supposed to be impossible to create. However, quantum physicists have revealed that quantum-sized wormholes, too small to see with a naked eye, exist and disappear all the time, all around us naturally. This machine appeared to create some kind of bridge between this world and another. A bridge too small to see, but large and stable enough for radio signals to pass through. Curious and still a little uncertain in my conclusion, I stood upright from the bucket after setting down my weed and slowly approached toward the machine, radio in hand. The man on the radio kept on about militias in the South and radicals invading Montana, and before I could make it to the machine, only feet away, I stopped, frozen by two phrases. Small, but carrying so much weight. Words like World War III and July 22nd, 2093. This wasn't another world at all. This was our world. This was our future. At least, if what the man on the radio said was to be believed. I had to be sure. I quickly ran to the machine, radio still in hand, and began again messing with the dials. As I did, the radio signal again screeched and crackled, as if I were turning the knob on the radio itself. Again, moments later, a few small turns in, again the small transistor radio had found another strong signal, a different signal, yet on the same frequency. Now I was sure, and even though my test had been affirmed, I was too curious to not listen on, to not know exactly what strangeness would leap out at my mind once again, throwing me off balance with equal streams of confusion, awe, and implication, a decision that I would soon regret. What filled my ears next, resonating off the walls of that abandoned building inside that room, was nothing short of a gut-wrenching and total mindfuck. The program seemingly started off in the middle of a speech, one that described prizes of certain tasks that I could not see being performed. When the man explained what would happen if he had gotten something wrong, there was a silence, followed by a large crowd booing mixed with a few cheers. Whatever I was listening to, it was surely some sort of television program, and thoughts of the missing machinery that I had noted earlier came to mind. The man asked someone unknown to name a landmark, one within a country that I've never heard of, and I'm pretty sure doesn't exist yet. I don't recall the exact pronunciation of the disembodied voice that provided an answer, but the next sound heard was a bunch of disappointed awes from the recorded crowd. The next thing I could hear made me rush for that infernal machine to hear anything else than what followed. I once visited a park with my family as a child, and subsequently had the rare opportunity to see a bear attack a deer. Most people don't think deer make any noise, but they do. They scream, in fact, like a baby dying. And combining that with the sounds of bones cracking and connective tissue being torn from muscle, the sound of blood splatter as flesh is torn from bone, and that high-pitched squeal that cannot fully be described, is nothing less than a hymn of agony. Whatever that man's punishment was for getting the question wrong, I do not know, and I never want to know. Holding back vomit, trying desperately to mentally scrub that sound from my ears, I frantically played with the knobs on that infernal machine one last time. I spun the dial for what felt like minutes, and nothing but static or dead air interchanging as I twirled through the knobs. Soon, a seedy tone, low but there, and then static. Not static from the absence of a signal, more like static in the signal, underlying and overwhelming, stagnant in the sound of dead air. It was as if there was nothing there, as if I had focused on some distant time and day, but there was nothing to be heard. At this point, I had had enough and simply turned the machine off. The lights had gone dark, and my small transistor radio having reverted back to its normative static, like there was no more signal to be found at all. I left that place with all that I had taken with me, leaving nothing behind, but taking more back with me than what I had carried in. My mind was heavy with baggage and mental souvenirs. Had I really just experienced what I think I'd had? Was that really our future? Why was there nothing but dead air in the long distance of what is yet to come? That last question would be answered later, once I'd gotten home, realizing the rest that I had brought with me, the baggage that was not cognitive in nature, but viral instead. You see, since that day, I've been suffering a myriad of symptoms that even doctors can't explain away, and while I sit writing this, quarantined in the hospital, much of my body rendered useless by impotence and necrotic tissue, I realize what may have happened to the people that used to work in that abandoned place. Why no one was ever questioned, and why some things, a few very important things, were simply left behind, forgotten. I know now that radio signals and frequencies are not the only things able to pass through quantum Rosen bridges, but pathogens as well. I do not know our future fate, whether or not all that was conveyed will truly come to pass. But I do know one thing with resolute clarity. You shouldn't listen to the future.
Well, they say the first step of avoiding a trap is recognizing it's there. I say the first step is just not to be there at all. But if you don't agree with me, make sure you stop back here again next weekend and prove everybody wrong. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.